we are looking for here are the people who are for you wet blankets. Again, some of you may find that you have a historical wet blanket who haunts you. Others of you may find that you're involved with a wet blanket. You know, somebody who brings up the famous odds issue. Wet blankets are sometimes come in the disguise of amateur experts, and they will say things like, do you know that for every one movie script that is bought, 10,000 are produced? And they have these sort of factoids that they present to you. Do you know that every agent receives 200 submissions a year, and you're asking them to read through their pile to get to your memoir? I personally believe in The Field of Dreams. I don't know if you remember that movie. Yeah, wonderful movie. And in The Field of Dreams, the logo for the movie was, build it and they will come. And this is something I very much believe is true with art. When you make a good piece of art, it is contagious. It goes from one person to another. You do start to experience synchronicity, where Emma and I have just spent 8 years writing an opera. And we finally have it in a shape where it can begin to be shown. We recorded 13 minutes of it on a little CD, and we started giving it just to our intimates, just to people that we knew really well, that we thought would probably say, oh wow, it's an opera. And what happened is that we gave it to one woman who just was an opera lover, and she came back to us and said, I'd like to give it to the president of the Theater Guild. Well, if we had shrewdly manipulated for 5 years, we might have figured out some way to get it to this particular guy. But it turns out that they went to Yale together, and they're still best friends. So she's just handing it over. This kind of thing happens. You know, when I was in Hollywood working as a screenwriter, I was always shocked by the number, you know how you wanted to believe that Creative Artists Association were in charge of your career, but you would write a screenplay and it would be your dentist's cousin who was the producer. And that kind of thing simply happens. None of us is really as isolated as we believe. We are more interconnected than we know. Okay, I've had your number from 1 to 5. I want you to scan for your wet blankets now. Historical and current. People who just make you think, oh, what's the use? Well, I don't think there is such a thing as otherwise. I think our art is intimately connected to our life, and if they start getting us really depressed about how we're a bad mother, we're not going to have the self-worth to make art. So, wet blankets across the board. The minute you identify them as wet blanket, it gives you a level of detachment, and it allows you to be gently self-defensive in your interactions with them. Just bringing these people to consciousness in a clear way makes you have a level of containment. What we're going to be tuning this afternoon is your instinct for self-protection. And I don't mean that we will become horribly self-centered. What I do mean is that we will begin to monitor inflow and outflow. Most of us have too much outflow. Many of us have too much inflow, where we are just overwhelmed. I turn my phone off when I write. I have 3 people in my life who are on my little list. They don't know they're on my little list, but when they call, I say, I've got about 10 minutes. I'd love to talk to you. I have 10 minutes. How are you? And that's the cue for a monologue. So I figure every day I can put in a half hour to 45 minutes of just listening. You know, I don't know about the rest of you, but sometimes I think of myself as a place. You know, people come and sit under the willow tree and they just wail, you know. And with some of them, I don't want to particularly draw a boundary, but I do find I am protective of my time. You know, my message says, if you get this message, I may be writing. I will get back to you. That's a magic sentence. I will get back to you. Instead of I will allow you to interrupt me no matter what I am doing.